Hey guys, welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom channel. Today we have a live interview. So if you're joining in, put in the comments that you're here. I want this to be interactive, so ask ask questions, and I can hear myself.
I'll take over while you're fixing that. Happy Friday the 13th, y'all. Great to have you with us today. If you're catching the replay, happy whatever day it is. Hope you're having a good one. Thanks for checking us out. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, then the bell for notifications so that you can check out all the awesome content we're putting out on this channel. Okay, Brandon.
There we go. The reason that I was hearing myself is because I was watching myself, editing stuff. But I know that the sound is working, so that's really awesome. So today we have a special guest, Rhiana Jones. Wait, is that right? Yeah, Rhiana Jones. I was trying to say if her last name, if it was really long, and I just was reading the last half or something. And so she leads a really amazing channel, and I'm going to show it right here, A Frugal Life. And this channel talks a lot about, of course, frugal living. And one of the things that I found really interesting is she started this thing in 2008, probably whenever there was a great challenge that we were facing. I don't know if you guys remember that year, but it was a little chaotic. And now we're in 2020, and there seems to be a lot more people interested in frugal living again. I'm not sure if there's a correlation, but I possibly. So anyway, she has an amazing channel. And one cool thing that I think you're going to hear is she was raised in part by a grandmother. And both of us, as you know, with Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, have influences from our grandparents, and there's a lot to it. So check out and subscribe to A Frugal Life. She has been doing this for a while. I love her videos, and you will learn something from that. So with that, I'm going to add her in, and here she is here.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry about messing up. I don't know how I messed up Jones.
No, because it's too simple. You expected it to be something crazy.
Yeah, I was like, hey, it's going to be a really long. Jones is something.
Yeah, hyphenated or something.
Yeah. So welcome.
Thank
you. How did you? Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start this channel? Why are you doing this? How are you a leader in frugal living?
Yeah. Frugal living has been like my lifeblood. Like you said, I was raised by my grandmother, and I think Amanda said something earlier when we were off stage or whatever that said that she didn't even realize that she was living frugally with her grandparents. But like I didn't realize when I was younger that it was frugal living. I just thought that was how people lived. But I think way back in 2008, I started the blog, which is frugallife.org, and that was kind of big back then, was blogging. Everybody was blogging and putting
What's
their
a
stuff
blog?
on.
I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
No,
it is a blog nowadays.
We totally started a blog in 2009. I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that kind of, there's still a lot of viewers on it, but that kind of died off because people want to see like video nowadays. And I started watching all of these frugal bloggers like Debt Free Dana, and I think you've talked before to Dawn at Sensible Money Mom. I love her too. And I just thought maybe I should put the blog stuff on the YouTube channel. So I think, I love video production and all of that. I'm doing some graphic design classes and things like that. So it's kind of a combination of two loves. And people, I think, just respond better to video than they were to the blog. So I started putting all that on the video.
For our blog, this is hilarious. We were doing daily pictures on our blog to showcase our coffee shop's business and growth as we were building it.
Right.
And then Instagram came around.
Yeah.
And we're like, wait a second, we should have created that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm definitely behind on the Instagram. I have one, but I don't use it as much as everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, you can major on one platform at a time. Do really well with YouTube, and Instagram becomes less important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and move us. Wait, I was trying to move us to where we could all see each other. There we go.
Yeah, nice.
That looks a little better. So, hey, Jan, welcome. If you've joined us, put in the comments that you're here. So I know that we are not just talking to ourselves, which is great. I like talking to ourselves. But we also want, as you have questions, put them in the chat. So that way we can interact with you as well. And of course, we have some stuff that we are going to share. But one of the things I think that we have very similar backgrounds on, and why and what I really liked on your most recent video is frugal tips from the Depression era. And something I was really, as I was thinking about even having you on, I feel like we're going to be in a very similar situation and moving into some things. And what are some things that you can share with our audience that you learned from your grandma that you would say, I'm more prepared for what's coming because of that?
Yeah. I think there's a couple ones. One is like the difference between wants and needs. Because when I was little, we just thought of money as something that you used to get things that were essential. Like that wasn't that you go out and get like the new video game or anything like that. Money was something you used to go out and get groceries. So that's definitely something I've taken throughout my lifetime. The other one, and it definitely came up during the last rush when everybody was buying everything in the grocery store and you couldn't find anything, was that you make do with what you have. So while everybody else was panicking that they couldn't find like potatoes or something like that, we were making do with what we already had in the pantry or whatever we could find in the grocery store. So I think that's what she definitely taught me, was you make do with what you have. And like things are not as important as family, and you don't have to replace things with like the newest things. So I'm like jumping from tangent to tangent, but she would keep things forever. Like furniture is something that she would have for decades. Clothes were things that she would have for decades. Like you don't get rid of something until it wears out. And that's when you can't find things in the store because of the pandemic and things like that. And you don't feel deprived because you're used to making do with what you already have. That's definitely something from my grandmother's time, I think. Yeah.
We do a clean out like a clean out meal where maybe once a month, every 6 weeks, every 2 months, it'll just be like, we've got a lot of random things in the fridge or in the cupboard. We just need to have a meal where we like clean it out. You just eat whatever is there, right? Maybe there's like half a box of something. We just cook the half a box, right? Or stuff like
definitely.
that. Especially I've been playing around with a bunch of recipes. So I feel like that's been really helpful to do during the pandemic. It reminds me of, or like when I heard your kitchen sink soup, I was like, that's genius. Can you tell our audience about that?
Yeah, that's definitely from my grandma. And she took one for the team and was the one that would eat it if nobody else would. But kitchen sink soup is just like you keep every little bit. Like, so I don't care if it's like half a cup of corn or like one piece of chicken, you keep it all even if you have to freeze it. And then once you have enough, you make a soup out of it. And I think it's like the best thing ever because I grew up on it. And it's always different and it's always good. But you're not throwing away and getting rid of food. And that's a big thing in our group too, is people are always trying to figure out how not to like waste food because it's just throwing money down the drain. So kitchen sink soup is a big one. And like we do things like put gravy in it and too, like whatever you can. So we were just used to eating that as kids. And now I still make it like once a week for my husband and I.
Nice.
So wait, kitchen sink soup, you make that once a week?
Yeah, we do. It's like everything but the kitchen sink is what we call it, kitchen sink soup, but right. Usually on Sundays, I'll make like a big pot of soup too, because then we can, we don't have to eat it every week, but we can freeze it in portions or we can eat it throughout the week for lunches and things like that. And I tend not to make as many canned meals and things like that, but I work all day long and there's no way I can cook every single night. So sometimes he can just go in and grab like a bowl of soup or whatever.
Yeah. So what other things, like she taught about food, what other things did she do that you're now putting into like this frugal life that you're like, man, I'm now reminded of that even more?
Probably one of the big things, and it's more financial, is not to go into debt. So I have never really had, just by choice, like a credit card that we use for essentials and things like that. I have like a little credit card for emergencies, and I think my husband has a store card or something, but we don't buy things on credit. Like you don't buy things until you can afford them. And people think that you have to have a credit card in order to do things, but we purchased our home like 4 years ago and without a long stream of credit. So I just had credit from our car payments and things like that. But you don't have to have this big Visa bill or this big credit card bill. I never saw her use a credit card in my life for anything. Like you purchase cash.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one. And I think that's definitely a mindset thing from the olden days or whatever, because now people use credit cards for everything, right? Credit cards. I just think like credit cards for going out to the movies or the restaurant is so crazy because you're paying 30% extra or whatever it is after
right?
you pay it in for something like that. It's crazy.
Amanda, do you have any stories like that with your dad was like probably her grandma's age?
Yeah, my dad was born in 1928, so he was a really young kid during the Depression, but also the area that he grew up in, same place I grew up in, we didn't really experience the Depression as much because we were already poor to begin with, right? So they would have like turkey, or not turkey, instead of turkey on Thanksgiving, they'd go out and kill whatever varmint they could find, a squirrel or a raccoon, like, and I still have these recipes of like baked raccoon or fried squirrel. Like they still were kind of in that hunter mentality, and they would, that's how they would have their meat, right? Whatever they could raise. And my dad grew up on a farm, so it was literally what they raised or could grow themselves. And then he would tell stories about the fun that they would have that had nothing to do with money, like picking on one of their teachers by taking a bunch of fall leaves and putting it in between their door and their screen door, and then knocking on it. So when the teacher opened the door, all the leaves would fall. Like my dad was totally a rascal kind of person, but his stories never were really about money. They were about having fun and enjoying life. And like I got that from him, right? That it doesn't have to all be about money. It can be about just living your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that.
What about you, Brandon, from your grandma? Yeah.
Yeah. So my grandma, I remember, and this was a story that was just told, my grandma passed about, what year was that? About 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
2012 is 8 years.
2012, 8 years ago. And we were told this story that my grandma wanted a living room set. And with this, my grandpa was like, we don't have it in the budget, and I'm not going to go buy it. So therefore, if you want a living room set, you're going to have to make some money to do it. And I mean, she was one of the stay-at-home moms, that kind of homemaker. And so she figured out how to do something. She did crocheting and some other things and sold her stuff to be able to buy that living room set. And she was an entrepreneur before entrepreneurship was a thing. And I think that's an interesting concept, where we think that frugality is this novel thing. And I'm like, well, no, it isn't. Growing our own stuff or whatever. And also being an entrepreneur isn't. So have you seen your grandma do any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that brings it into nowadays too, it's the age of the side hustle right now, but our grandmas and parents and everything were side hustling way back when. Actually, my mom, she was a single mom, and she was always side hustling for something. She used to make cheesecakes and sell them to the neighbors, in addition to doing everything else she did to make money, right? And then I am always side hustling something, pet sitting or babysitting or whatever on top of the jobs. And my grandma would do whatever she could as well to make extra money, but I think she was also big focused on making do with what you have. Like you talked about the living room set. Like at one time, one of the kids spilled something on a piece of furniture, and instead of throwing the furniture away, she painted these big, gigantic flowers on it and like upcycled the table. So you don't throw things away. I'm like, you make do with what you have.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that goes through the ages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what do you think you're going to take? Like now it's, 2020. What are you saying? Man, I'm really glad I learned this. And what are you going to take in to the future with it, with her lessons?
Yeah. I think it's right now I'm personally focused on teaching others like what I learned. And I think some of the younger generations too, like I have a grown-up daughter, and I think she's really frugal as well. But I think teaching these younger generations who are used to being on the computer all the time and everything, that you don't have to purchase things, like you were saying, Amanda, to have fun. Like you can just have fun without anything, just spending time with each other and things like that. And one of my hugest things is if she always said only boring people are bored, right? So there's always something you can do to be not bored without even having to spend money. So like the hobbies that you can make money on, like crocheting, like you were saying, and things like that. So I really want to focus on the future of teaching others those different mindsets and mentalities. That's what kind of turned me onto your channel in the future, is you had a lot of the mindset stuff about happiness and things like that. It's the way that you think, not you just have to kind of turn away your mindset and change the way you think about living and everything, and not focusing on right now the election or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
definitely that.
You definitely you have a daughter who's, you said, an adult.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, she definitely doesn't have that. I didn't think you had like adult age children.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay as young as possible. It's the makeup for the camera.
We have a 2-year-old, and that's.
But Brandon, you're old enough to have an adult child.
Yeah,
No, she's calling you out
my
now.
nieces are 20 years old, and my sister's 3 years younger than me, so I could totally have a teenager or more.
I could too, technically.
Yeah.
You have a 2-year-old? That's so cute. Do you have her on the channel? I've never seen her.
Oh yeah, it's a he. He's
he. I assumed it was a girl.
We might have him on the channel in the future. We're trying to, one of the things that we want to do is not have his name out there a lot. We want him to be able to make the choice whether his name is on the internet when he's like 13 or so. So it's been kind of one of those hard things. Then how do we involve him without sharing his name, and so that he has that future choice to make.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and speaking of with his name, his name came from
my dad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not his real name, but it did come from that. And so some of his legacy lives on.
Yeah.
Nice.
He acts a lot like my dad too. So
you're and as people age, they start looking like a 2-year-old too.
So now he looks like an old man.
Yeah. He's starting to, that's how old men look like
little boys.
Children.
Yeah. So anyway, we're digressing.
Yeah, I'll get back to. So Kathy wrote in the comments that one of the things I think she's learned from a Depression era person is take care of what you have. I actually learned that from my older brother when I was like maybe 4 or 5. I would like tear things up, and he would be like, "You need to take care of things. Like act. You need to like learn to act your age, not your shoe size." He would, that kind of idea, and from like then on, I took care of stuff. And actually, one of the best compliments I've ever received was from when my maid of honor at our wedding, when she was like giving her little like speech. She talked about this thing, this like trunk that she helped me move into my college dorm when I went to college. And she actually had just recently helped me move that same trunk into our new apartment that Brandon and I were going to be living in after we got married. She's like, it looked exactly in the same condition. I can tell you take care of your things. So I know you're going to take care of your future husband, you know, this new, you know, take care of Brandon. Cause I feel like it's not always the case, but if you take care of your stuff, you're going to take care of people too, which is so much more important.
Right.
And that comes from the Depression era people, right?
Yeah.
That idea.
I think that's the two, like, things are not disposable. Like nowadays they just make things that are disposable, but I mean, things should last forever once you have them in your possession or whatever.
Yeah. Where we have like a cell phone that should last for several years, and we have like in a few months and we want to replace it.
Yeah, a 600. Actually, my cell phone is so old, I don't replace it until I like drop it in the pool or something like that.
Same here. Absolutely.
So what other things like could you teach us, like from, maybe not from grandma or any of that, but going into the frugal lifestyle, and as you've been developing this channel, I'm sure you've learned some tricks, some tips that you're like, man, I didn't know that you want to share with us.
Ooh, that's put me on the spot there. I don't know. I think that you have to just learn from other people. With the group, it grew so fast. The Facebook group that we have, like last year it was like 100 people, and now it's like 50,000 people, and I learn something new every single day. I think I know everything about being frugal, and then somebody comes from another country, because we have like worldwide people there, or another location, and you know, like cultural things are different. You just realize that people are used to doing completely different things than you are. So my biggest thing is you should just learn from each other, and learn from other people, and just keep learning as much as you can. Right now, my biggest thing with my husband and I is YouTube. It's not just for like entertainment and cute cats and dogs or whatever. He's rebuilding a truck.
No, I thought that's all it was for.
Yeah, it's just cats, just dogs. But he's building a truck. Yeah, he's building a truck right now, and every single thing he's done on that truck, he learned how to do from YouTube. So like, I think that just like learning things online now is free. Like the digital age. My grandmother would be ecstatic if she had something like that. We spent our time at the library, but I think definitely in the future, just continue to learn from as many people as you can. I'm learning so much from your channel as well. Different, like you guys focus on a little bit different, more like the money and the wealth and things like that. So learning from others is the best thing that you can do to stay frugal.
Yeah. Kind of related to that, and feel free to totally pass on this question. I don't think we had this in the queue, but if you think like everyone has like a why behind what they're doing, and because when you mention like we're talking about something different, right? We're kind of talking about, as you're being frugal, what do you do with that money that you're saving, right? How do you make sure it's there for your future and all that kind of stuff? So like, obviously we're frugal for a reason, not to just be frugal for frugal sake. Like, what's your why behind why frugality is important to you?
So I do have a why. My why is like stability. Stability is my my most important thing, and that comes from like a back and forth of not having money. So when I grew up, my grandma and my grandpa and my brother and I lived on my grandpa's Social Security. So we didn't feel deprived because she was really frugal, but we also didn't have extras. And then I moved out of the house when I was 18, and I lived on a retail budget with my soon-to-be husband, and we were very, very low income for a long time. So being frugal was the only way we could like buy groceries and things like that. So now I'm in a much better place. Obviously, as you get older, you get in a better place. But I think my why has always been that I want to be stable enough that if anything happens, then we're safe and secure. And you also had that video that was talking about mantras, and my mantra for the site is living better for less. So we want to be able to not spend as much money on stupid things you don't want to pay for, like the electric bill and things like that. So you have money to spend on things that you really want to spend money on, like my books in the background or whatever. And sometimes on the group, people will be like, well, why'd you spend money on that? Well, because I saved all this money over here, right, on the electric bill or on things like rice and beans and things like that, so that I could spend money on the things that are really important to me. And then just to have that security and insurance. So I'm kind of rambling right now, but we are in California, and we were hit really bad in our area by the creek fire. So it was like, I think it's still going, like 300,000 acres or something like that. And we were really scared for a while, and I felt safe and comfortable because my husband had prepared, and we had a truck in the driveway with all the things that we needed if we had to get out, right? And the only way that we had that was because we're frugal enough to save up and prepare for that. So my why is definitely the safety and security for the family, in all aspects of it.
Yeah. And I love that you can like save money both by like reducing expenses and setting aside a portion of that, but you can also still enjoy your life. And actually, I don't know, but sometimes I feel like this pursuit of frugality becomes a joy on its own, right? To like, to set an intention if you want to do X, Y, or Z, and then you do it, you figure out a way. And that really like builds people's confidence, that then that confidence can carry them into the harder decisions. Like, do I choose this savings account, this money market account, a Roth IRA, a whole life insurance policy? Like, what do I do? They can bring that confidence that they had from making kitchen sink soup into those kind of situations too.
Yeah, definitely.
The one thing that we think about a lot is the savings that grandma did. We call it the 10-10-10 savings rule. And that they saved, actually. That was a very different thing than we do now. And they built stability. Whereas right now we're in a crisis because people have built, and what we think a lot is upside down pyramids. So everything is on risk and on debt, as opposed to on living with enough. And, we say, well, I deserve that car that I can't afford. Gosh darn it. So therefore I'm going to go get it. Whenever you're like, well, no, you don't have the money for it. And, I don't know, but everybody deserves it, right? We should all get a trophy and whatever.
I think you just have to prioritize what you deserve, though, right? Like you don't deserve everything. You have to choose what's most important to you.
Yeah. I was doing some research recently on like, as we become wealthier, does that mean we're going to have more problems, right? And is that just kind of that whole mo money, mo problems from Notorious B.I.G.? And I found this really interesting book that was published where this guy did the research. I totally am horrible with names. So I'll have to look that up. If you want to know, look in the comments later. But basically he found, talking to all these super wealthy people, that the way they stayed content was by not giving themselves everything they wanted when they wanted it, but instead building this big pile of money that would bring them a lot of safety and security. You think of like Warren Buffett, right? Still eats McDonald's, drives an old car. I don't even know what kind, not a Rolls Royce or something like that. It's that kind. And he's super happy, even though he's super wealthy. Whereas you could picture someone else who's in a very different situation because they spent all their wealth, kind of the typical lottery winner who is bankrupt in a few years because they just go spend it all. So I think I love that you take the frugality, you use that to build the security so that no matter what life brings your way, fires, coronavirus, whatever, you're ready for it and you can be content no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's a challenge whenever we're faced with this thing that's happening now. And with Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, we have this thing, or a tagline we say, sometimes intelligence skips a generation, because we have lived in this time of excess, right? And with the Great Depression, they didn't have a lot. They had to, and they came out of that, and they said they were a lot more thrifty. and I think that we've forgotten some of those things, and I think things like your channel and ours is we need to return to that and learn as we are going into this interesting time. What can we do, and what are we going to become after this? Like, because we will be changed by this event. And the question is, are we going to be all mad and angry at people, or are we going to say, all right, this taught me something, and where do we go from here? So what do you think this whole crisis is teaching you right now?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not showing the good parts of people. Like, I think we've been through different crises in America and things like that that really brought people together. Like, I guys probably were too, but an adult during 9/11, and everybody came together. And now this thing that's affecting the whole world, and everything's like so divisive. Not even with just the politics, but people are like, mask or not mask. Like, that's not something that you should be worried about. Luckily, I live in a small town, so the whole thing doesn't affect me as much because we don't really leave the house as much anyways. And it's not like I live a frugal life, so I'm not going to concerts and things like that I'm missing out on. But I think it's also teaching people too, like, what's most important. Like, it's not like all these things that you think that you can't live without, like going through Starbucks every day and hanging out at the mall or whatever like that. When it was all shut down, you couldn't do it. You started to realize what is actually important. And things like whether you can see your grandma because there's COVID or not is more important than the fact that you can't get into a mall. So hopefully, as we all get through this, people will start being less divisive and realize, the things that are important. But all we can do is hope, right?
Well, and I think this is the thing I think is we both have platforms, and that's a power thing that I think is important. We lead people. I mean, you have a group of 50,000 people, whether they get things, whatever, right or wrong, I don't know. But we have a leadership place in this, and how we are as leaders is going to reflect on our followers, people that are listening to our YouTube channel and all of that. And so I think we have some authority that you created. You created a group of 50,000 people on Facebook, right? That's pretty awesome.
Well, it kind of created itself, but
well, it wouldn't have happened without you.
Gave it a place to start.
Yeah. And I think for me, some of this happened when the disaster for me was Hurricane Katrina. When that happened, my family was impacted, and I thought they were possibly dead. We were dating at the time, and you realize that all the stuff, and my sister lost everything, but not her life or her kid's life. And I think that event shaped a lot of what I am today, because you realize none of this stuff matters,
right?
For the most part, stuff doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
What would you want to leave your, if you were to say again, life mantra, and you had to say 5 minutes of, this is the value bomb I want to drop to this audience, what would that be to them?
I think it kind of backs up what you were saying, is that stuff doesn't matter. So when we were little with my grandma and living on a lower income, it wasn't about stuff. And I think I talked about that in my depression video. It was about, time with each other. Like, it was the 80s, and we didn't have cable TV or a VCR or a microwave or anything like that, because my grandparents lived frugally. But the things that I remember are like going to the beach with them, or spending the whole day in the library with my grandma, or playing with my brother outside all day, in a time where people were usually glued to their TVs. So I think definitely it's not the possessions, like you were saying, that matters. It's the things that you do and that you leave with people. And my grandma could have been doing a lot of other things, but she spent 95% of her time with the kids she was raising, which was us. So that's the most important thing than, the stuff and the possessions and what you can gather and even the wealth that you can build. I like the wealth for stability's sake, but I don't need the wealth for like a Mercedes or a Lamborghini or something like that. I just want to be able to, jump in the car and go somewhere if there's a fire, but you don't need all of that extra stuff. And then I don't usually bring it up in my videos, but when I was younger, my mom had an abusive boyfriend, and we had to leave the house when I was 13 without anything that we owned. And we went to my aunt's, and we never went back to that house, and we never went back to that stuff. And I lost every possession I ever owned that was in that house with her. And I realized that as a little kid, possessions don't matter, but we got away safely with our lives, right? So my mom mattered and I mattered and things like that. So I think if I left anything, it's not to focus on what you can buy or build or anything like that. It's what you have with, the people that are around you, and then what you can share with them.
Yeah. And would you say, like, I love that you mentioned your grandma spent time with you and your brother. It wasn't like I think the biggest fear that I would have around frugality is that it would just eat away all my time. Like, I'd spend so much time trying to save money that I wouldn't be able to spend that quality time with my loved ones or, earn more money, right? That it might actually limit my earning potential too. And I love that picture of, no, your grandma lived her life. She did what she wanted to do, spending time with you, pouring into you. And the frugality actually helped her do that more rather than kept her from doing that more. Would you say that's kind of the wrong way to be frugal, is to have it eat up your time like that?
Yeah, I think that you can definitely go overboard. Like, I mean, she didn't coupon back there, coupon back there, or she didn't have a job, like try to build wealth and all that stuff. They still lived off of their Social Security. She focused on what she felt was important, which was the kids and her husband. And now I probably go overboard. I work full time and I do this and I do that, but I don't have little kids in the house that I would focus on instead, right? Like, you guys have a little kid in the house you need to focus on. So you only do as much as you can, but you can also involve the kids, like teaching them to cook is frugal, right? But it's also spending time with them. And we used to craft with my grandma, and that was obviously frugal because we weren't spending money on going to the movies. We were spending time making crafts at the library or something like that. So you definitely have to, like, living better for less means like deciding what's most important and going with that and not going overboard. Definitely not going overboard.
Yeah. Which is a different definition of frugality, right? It's not just saving money, or like reducing your expenses. It's aligning your life with your values.
Yeah. And I have another video that's like frugal versus cheap. Like, you don't want to be cheap with your life or your stuff or your people or anything. You want to be frugal, which is deciding what's most important.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people miss that and they think it's the same word. Just like people think that savings and investing is the same word. Right. And I'm like, that is not the same word. We have to learn to separate those things out. And that idea of what brings joy, like for us, we had peas that we would, I don't know, the snap peas that we would all peel and stuff as a kid, or they would have a ton of those things, and there's big buckets and everything. And someone posted a picture on that on Facebook, said, anybody remember this? I'm like, oh yeah, that was me. I did that. And we would just sit around my great grandmother and my grandmother and me and my sister would just be, I don't know, taking the peas out or something.
Yeah, snapping peas.
Yeah, snapping peas. And that was fun. We would play cards all the time because that would be a good experience. And I had the experience of having my great grandmother and my grandmother live together with me. And the other challenge for me, and this is what is very similar to you, is I was in a very similar situation that brought me to live with my grandmother. And I don't think I ever shared that on anything. But that's what led me to that. And she took care of us whenever we didn't have stability.
Yeah.
And that was a powerful thing and something that we learned a lot by being around them. So, Kathy loves the conversation. Fitzpatrick. I think she came from Dawn's channel, if I remember correctly, or Jan's. I don't know.
All big, one happy family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a big group conversation going on sometime.
Yeah. That's why I like doing this kind of stuff and inviting other YouTubers, because we all have really some value. I don't want to just create a money channel, but like, what is it that we can learn from each other? When we were deciding to rename our channel and create our business, it was Grandma's Wealth Wisdom for a reason. And it wasn't necessarily always about money. Wisdom and wealth are very different. So what would you say, what other wealth things, and it's not money, would you say you're giving to your children that you're passing on you're passing on that you learn from them? From that you learned from Grandma, some wealth things that are you would consider wealth.
Yeah, I think that's what turned me on to your channel in the first place, was the name of it, because it like directly related to how I learned about everything in Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. Again, it's like the possessions that don't matter, but I think that you're right. Wealth is not always money. It's stability, it's your family, it's your health. I've had the unfortunate experience of having many family members that have like debilitating diseases, or like my aunt that lives with us had a stroke, and we take care of her. And it's just the wealth of having sorry, there's a fly in my house. The wealth of having her in the household as wisdom and knowledge, right? The wealth of like learning from your elders and just like teaching others. And I have the joy of being able to work from home. Even before the pandemic, I get to work from home, which means I get to spend so much more time with my husband and my family. And I came from a place where I was commuting 3 hours a day each way. So that's wealthy to me, is just the ability to work from home, is that time with my husband that, I would never have if I had to commute. So I think there's all sorts of wealth in your life that you can be grateful for, and that you can be happy for, and that you can see if you just look for it, that people are kind of realizing now, because they can't leave the house, that there's all kinds of things that they have.
So you take care of your aunt? Is that what you said?
My aunt actually took care of my grandmother, who had Alzheimer's, until she passed away. She lived with her, and then a few years later, she had a stroke. She's in her 70s, and we took her into our house, so she lives with us. So that's kind of our family thing, is we don't put people anywhere. We just take them into our house. And but you learn so much and you get so much out of that. So,
so I don't know if you know this, that Amanda's mom lives with us.
Oh, I didn't know that. You mentioned your mother-in-law.
Yeah. And so she had a stroke, which again, people think that they're going to live forever. But when you have experiences like this that happen, and her dad passed away about 5 years ago or so. And so 71-year-old and a 2-year-old and us working, it's crazy in our household.
And it's also beautiful where, like not very many 2-year-olds get to hang out with their grandma all day,
all the time.
And we're creating something unique and different that will give him a different perspective on life when he's our age, right? That he'll be able to hopefully share with others.
Yeah, and he gets his grandma's wisdom.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, through this, so because of my mother-in-law's stroke, she can't do certain things that, like sort medicine and I don't know,
Pay
pay
your
bills,
Yeah.
things like that we do. But yet she takes care, like while we're doing this video, she's watching him, and she can't like teach him ABCs because of her condition, but she can take care of him, go for a walk, and do those things. And that's and for us in frugality, man, that's saving us a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to have any childcare. And then for us, when she moved here, she brought her car, and her car still works. And so we have that as our vehicle right now.
It's also the experience too, right? Of him being exposed to somebody else with disabilities, right? Or another age, like some little kids don't get exposed to. So
correct.
You learn. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so much what we deal with is a lot in the whole life world, and young people think they're invincible, and that life is gonna it's always going to be up and to the right. And hopefully your finances are up and to the right always. But the reality is things happen. And if any of this from our history and some of this taught me is strokes happen, things happen, and we just have to be there as a unit to help each other out. And that's something I'm hoping we will do for our son, and he'll see that.
Yeah. And hopefully, like, people who might watch this and be like, well, I wish I had children or parents or aunts or uncles or a family. Guess what? We live in a world where we can create our own family too, right?
Definitely.
I love the place we live in now, the block we live on. We've totally made relationships here where we know we're looking out for each other, and we're there to help each other. And it's been a lot of fun, right? To like, because we just moved about 6 months ago. Who knows what it'll be like in 6 years, but even with 6 months to see that. And
we moved last Friday the 13th.
We did. 7 months ago. Wait, no. That was March 13th. Yep. That was 8 months ago, dude.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So, like I would say that's probably one of the things that the Depression era people did really well too, was create community and help each other out, regardless of whether you're family or not. And that's something I think that our generations can embrace and create our own. And I think we are. And that's one of the things I'm really proud about.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then too, that we don't have to, I mean, we have great neighbors that we feel the same way about, but you don't have to be neighbors with somebody. Like if you feel alone or isolated because of COVID-19, like we're all talking right now, like you can build your community online too. So you have that ability as well. I mean, I have people on that group now that I consider friends that I never would have known that are like in France and Canada and things like that. So
100%.
It's crazy, right? I mean, you're in California. I did that thing with the other YouTube live that we did interview, and I'm like, wow, we're all connected in the United States. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's something that is different than we did in the Great Depression. You know, they knew their neighbors because they didn't travel very much. I mean, and they didn't have the internet.
So that creates an opportunity. This is kind of a vision for the future. I don't know. I mean, this doesn't exist right now, or maybe it only exists in little pockets. But what if we had the opportunity to, like our grandparents, right? Back in, 30s, 40s, when kids got off of school, they would just go to each other's houses. No one paid for after school childcare, that kind of thing. What if like we could find solutions like that on a community level that helps us all be more frugal together, right? Where this person knows how to sew, that person knows how to cook, right? And they swap lessons, or I sew everything for you, you cook everything for me, and we don't charge each other money. We just swap, like almost going back to like bartering or the gift economy. that kind of thing. I love that idea. I have no clue how it would happen, or like I have some clues from a book called Sacred Economics that kind of dives into that a little deeper. But how cool would that be if we could all be like frugal and find these ways to be outside of the money economy together and create a separate economy that has nothing to do with money?
Yeah, definitely. I love that.
That'd be like ultimate frugality.
Well, I think that's part of what's happening in our household. Like, it's a gift that my mother-in-law is not charging us to do childcare, but anyway, it's just.
And I don't charge her to pay her bills or cook her dinner, and
sort her pills or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
There is some budgeting that we do to make sure that, hey, if you're going to go out to eat, and I'm not paying for everything, but, and she has her pension, and that's really good. So, but some of it's like, hey, we're family. We just figure it out. So,
yeah. I think my whole family does that, even though like my parents and my brother and everybody that's not here with us or whatever, we do the same thing. Like if somebody has a medical bill they can't pay, then we all, pitch in to take care of each other. Like my mom calls it like a big, I don't know, commune or something like that online. I don't know what she calls it, but we're all just together in it, and we're all taking care of each other, and nobody's like out for themselves. So I think that, like you said, if we could do that with a whole community and not just family, it would be amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
And out of choice, not out of any kind of force or coercion.
Not like socialism or anything like that, but just because you want to bring your neighbors something.
Right. And hopefully within families too, we're doing that by choice instead of being manipulated or coerced.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Well, and I think, we've been talking about this, Amanda and I, all these isms, capitalism isms, like it's just taking care of people. And we just want to like be good stewards to the people around us. And there's a balance of everything, right? It's not just one way is going to solve it or the other. It's just family. It's just taking care
community.
of community. There's a book, A Different Drum. That was a really good book on community.
Yep.
By M. Scott Peck, who wrote
The Road Less Traveled.
Yeah. So I recommend that book. Anyway, I want to end this. If you guys have any questions or anything, hit them in the chat. And thanks for joining us. And of course, hit that like button. That's what you do when you watch a YouTube video. And put in the comments something about how you're being frugal or what you learned from your grandma on being frugal. And again, really loved having you on this channel. And don't forget to go to her channel, and it's called A Frugal Life, the channel. So go to A Frugal Life, the channel, and you'll find Rhiana there. So
and Rhiana, if you don't mind, could you put whether now or after we're done, a link to the Facebook group in the comments?
Yeah, definitely. And then we're definitely going to have you on my channel, right? So we'll talk more about what you guys do too over there.
For sure. So thanks guys for joining us, and share it with everybody. And we look forward to seeing you next time.